I want to welcome everyone to VSBA's webinar on our proposed 2022 resolutions. Taking a moment here, my name is Phil Gore. I'm VSBA's Director of Board Services. And with us today, we have President Neil Odell and Vice President and Chair of the Resolutions Committee, Flor Diaz-Smith. Also presenting today is Sandra Cameron, who is VSBA's Associate Executive Director. And we want to welcome each of you and thank you for joining us. In addition, behind the scenes, Carrie Lamb is here to offer some technical support. So anyone that has any challenge or need that she might be able to help with, please make a note of her cell phone number there. And then a few other logistics on the next slide. About this webinar, we are recording it for others to be able to view. We really encourage your questions and comments. We ask that you use the Q&A feature, not the chat, because we'll facilitate questions anonymously, and it just seems to be better that way. Immediately after the webinar today, you will receive an invitation to give us some feedback on how this worked for you, and we encourage you to be thinking about that because feedback is always a gift. After the webinar, you'll receive a link. All those that registered for the webinar, whether they attended or not, will receive a link to the video, a copy of the slides that were used, and some additional resources. These webinars are archived on the VSBA website into the future, so it'll also be something you could share with your colleagues that may have interest in that. So without further ado, I'll turn this to Sandra and Flor.
Sorry, I was unmuting on the wrong screen. Welcome, everybody. Our agenda for today, we're going to be looking at the proposed resolutions from submitting boards. We'll look at some amendments to current resolutions, and we will look at proposed changes to the bylaws. Oops. There we go. So I wanted to just remind everybody about resolutions, their purpose, and what our bylaws say. The VSBA bylaws, Article 16E, says that when passed by 60% of the voting delegates, a resolution shall become a position or statement of the association. Each position shall be voted as a resolution or a continuing resolution. Continuing resolutions shall be statements of association policy, which are of ongoing or permanent nature, and shall be in effect until amended at a subsequent annual meeting of the association. Resolutions shall be statements of specific positions on behalf of the association and shall be in effect until the next annual meeting, when they may be deleted, continued, or amended by vote of the membership. So VSBA resolutions provide guidance to VSBA staff and board when we're working in the legislature or developing programs and services for our members. Resolutions are generated by member school district boards, the VSBA Board of Directors, and its resolution committee. The committee makes a recommendation to the full board of pass, do not pass, or take no action on each proposed resolution. Then one delegate from each VSBA member, SU or SD, votes on all resolutions at the annual meeting, which this year is October 20th at Lake Maury. In today's webinar, we'll review each resolution proposed for consideration in FY23 and provide the board's positions to each proposal for voting at the annual meeting on October 20th. The chair of the VSBA Resolutions Committee is Flor Diaz-Smith, and she'll facilitate the presentation of those proposals.
Thank you, Sandra. Thanks for the introduction. And one thing that I'll add to what Sandra just said is that regardless of the position that the committee took, all of the resolutions go to the entire membership at Lake Maury on the 20th. I wanted to start by thanking the Resolutions Committee. I'm not going to read all the names. You see them there on your screen, and also give a special thank to our support staff, which is Sandra Cameron, our Associate Executive Director. So with that, let's start with Don, who has joined us. And Don is from Miswaki Valley School District, is going to introduce the first two proposed resolutions. Don, you've got the floor. Here's the first.
Okay. All right. Can you hear me? Okay. Now I have to tell you, twice on my screen when Sandra was speaking, it said I was losing stability. So that's a problem we have here at certain times today. All right. So this resolution was proposed by a committee of the MVSD School Board. And I might add that this is a first real venture by this board into resolutions. And I'm very pleased. We have a couple of members like myself who've been on the board for a number of years and then a merged board, but we have some new members. We have members who have children in elementary school, which I think is very, very positive. So I guess I would say I encouraged them, but they really took the initiative to look at areas of concern in education and propose a resolution. Now, what happened is timing is critical. And our budget this year unfortunately didn't pass. So we then went back to the revised budget. And I don't think that probably our timing and the governor's timing and the legislature's timing all came together. So what I'm doing here is recommending we withdraw this proposal and submit a proposal to amend VSBA the resolution noted on your screen. One of the things that occurred after we had submitted this was the governor did sign off on a budget that included some significant money that not only will help for economic development and job growth, but does impact career and technical education. And so at that point, we thought rather than continue to pursue this, we would withdraw it and merge it with a previous resolution that I believe might have come out of.
Whoops, Don, we just lost sound. Excuse me, Don.
Okay.
Oh, I think he froze.
Don, we can't hear you.
Access to career technical education in Vermont. And putting this together, I did, as a follow-up to my committee, talked with some people in career and technical education with whom I've consulted over the years. And there's very strong feelings that something needs to happen and that maybe the governor has initiated something that will cause change. But there's still much work to do. And so what you see before you is a resolution that MVSD feels to move forward as an amended resolution.
Thank you, Don. So we're going to be discussing this recommendation in the full slate of VSBA resolutions a bit later, but we wanted to explain the process why it was withdrawn. So next slide, Sandra. Now Don will explain the second resolution proposed by his district.
So I am proud of the members of the MVSD board who sought to become involved in resolutions this year. Kind of unfortunately, as we worked through them with everything else, again, we may have gotten ahead of the train or maybe got the cart before the horse. But I think what we were addressing was an issue brought to us by our finance committee and our business manager. And there were some concerns, I think, that was voiced even at a VSBA meeting that something needed to change and that Sue pursued this in the legislature. So once the legislature closed and the governor signed bills, we did not see the need to take and pursue the issue as we had addressed it. So on behalf of my board, I was authorized to make changes if necessary to our amendments, to our resolutions. So I acted to withdraw this one. And the reason is, you can see there were some acts in the legislature that we had been following. I think probably all VSBAs member districts were following that appear to have either solved the problem or move it in the correct direction. And so we want to withdraw it, just take a wait and see attitude if this does address the issues. If not, we will probably be back next year with a proposal on this issue.
Thank you, Don, again. Now we're gonna welcome Claire Wool from the Burlington District, who will discuss proposal number 3. Welcome, Claire.
Hi, thank you so much for having us, and thank you for everyone on the call and for all that you do. We greatly value the VSBA and appreciate this opportunity. Resolution number 3 is from the Burlington School District. On behalf of the Burlington School District as chair, I also have on the call Martine Gulick, who is the board clerk. We represent 12 school board members. This resolution is what we are passionate about statewide, that we would ask that the VSB, should I read it in its entirety? I mean, I'm following someone who's removing it. So if we're going forward with this one, how do you want me to just read it? And
Sure, that'd be great.
Okay.
Thank you.
all right, so thank you. The VSBA advocates that the Vermont legislature allocate funds to assist school districts with PCB and radon remediation, including districts whose contamination was discovered prior to the legislation and irrespective of costs covered by capital bonding. The board recommendation is to pass as a regular resolution. And the note that this will be added, additional language added as VSBA Resolution Section 2, subsection B5. Our school district, along with many others, we know Act 74. We also know within legislation, there are some allocated funds, but it is pretty ambiguous going forward in looking at the documents online by the AOE and through the state, that this is a concern that we will all be addressing based on the testing that will start this fall within the state. And we look forward to seeking the VSBA's support in Montpelier, representing all school districts who will be faced once with this testing and the uncertainty. And we want to make sure that educational dollars are not spent in these type of facility issues that many schools will be confronted with. So we thank you for the opportunity. It is timely. It made headlines because of our unfortunate situation, but it has been in the ABCs of PCBs have been here for many years. I think with our moratorium on construction aid the past 14 years, we haven't seen it. So we're appreciative that the state is taking, the Department of Health, the steps to make sure that all schools throughout the state are tested, and we believe that there needs to be serious consideration for support in once that testing is done, how to support those school districts.
Thank you, Claire. So as Claire already read, the committee recommended to pass this resolution as a regular resolution, which means that we would look at it again next year. The committee had a robust, I just wanted to add a robust discussion about this. It felt very personal to Burlington at the beginning, but it's very timely because of all of the testing that is going to start now. So it's an important resolution. So we thank the Burlington School District for bringing it to us. Next slide, we're going to have Martine. Welcome, Martine. And she will be presenting another resolution also by the Burlington School District.
Hello, everybody. And I want to echo what Chair Wool said, and thank you for all of your great work for strengthening public schools and the public school system around the state of Vermont. It is much appreciated. Thank you. I will also read this resolution proposal number 4, and then discuss it a little bit and just highlight some important points. Be it resolved, the VSBA advocates that all rules, regulations, policies, quality standards, reporting requirements, and laws regarding public schools in Vermont must apply to any school that receives funds from the statewide education fund for any reason or any purpose. And the board recommendation passes a continuing resolution. So I have to say that this resolution originally came from Mark Schauber, who is on River Valley's Unified School District Board, part of Wyndham Central Supervisory School Board. Mark, who is committed to equity, felt that this was important to proclaim. And unfortunately, his board did not pass it as a resolution, but he thought it was a natural fit for the Burlington School Board to take on, as the Burlington School Board is equally passionate about equity and also about narrowing the opportunity gap. It's something that we commit to day after day in Burlington. So it seemed like a natural fit for us. One thing I would like to say about this resolution is that it in no way chips away at school choice. That's not what this is about. We understand that Vermont is committed to school choice, and we agree with that as a policy. This is more about schools that receive money from the Ed Fund having to follow the same kind of reporting requirements as all other schools in the state. So as you can see, reporting requirements, this is a term that comes up in that be it resolved language, and it's something that we feel is very, very important. We know right now, coming out of this pandemic, that the needs across the state are great. We have many students suffering from homelessness, food insecurity, not to mention mental health crises. So the needs are great, and we need a robust education fund. So those schools that are going to receive funding, those districts that will receive funding, they don't have a school necessarily in their district, then they just need to be cognizant of the reporting requirements and really commit to reporting in the same way that other districts do. That's the focus of this resolution. I don't know if anyone on the call right now has any questions, but that's basically what I was prepared to say. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Martine, for sharing with us. It's an important resolution. As you read before, the recommendation of board is to pass as a continuing resolution as support for public schools. I wonder if this is a good opportunity to have any questions, Sandra, that if people have any questions on the other ones were, pretty self-explanatory, but there might be some questions about this one. Is this okay? We open it up.
Yes, we could pause now before we move to the recommendation or the proposals from the committee. Yep.
Yeah. So I can't really see, I see just the panelists and not the public. So
Is Mimi
Bill?
Clark.
Okay. Can they speak to it? Can we unmute them, Sandra, or not?
Carrie, are you able to unmute?
Sorry.
We don't have any comments in the question and answer
Okay.
feature.
Okay, great.
Yes. I can allow them to talk if anybody
Okay.
wants
Okay,
to.
and I assume everybody could hear us asking for, so please either raise your hand or put a comment for.
Yes, if they put a question in the Q&A, we can, and ask us to allow them to talk, we can do so.
Okay, I see Mimi said I will type a question.
She said, will this resolution apply to private schools?
So the idea is that this resolution will apply to anybody that receives public funds. So yes. Any other questions? Is that clear, Mimi?
That is the only question in there.
Okay, so then I don't want to hold up this. If there's no other questions on this, let's move. Thank you, Martine, for explaining this. The next two proposals really originated from the resolutions committee. So let's move to the next slide. And My computer is acting up a little bit, but the VSBA advocates for significant input on the school district quality standards adopted by the rule of the AOE regarding the business, facilities management, and governance practice of the district. We recommended that this was a pass, that the board pass this resolution as a regular resolution. We are already doing some work, and Neil and Phil are here who are involved in this work if we have any questions. But Secretary French invited the VSBA to help with this work, and we feel that having school district quality standards framed and adopted is an important practice for the schools in every district. I would really want to open it up for Phil, if it's okay, Phil, to give a little bit on the work that you guys are doing. I know that you have had 2 meetings already, right?
Yeah, great. So the governance portion of these proposed district quality standards, the secretary asked the VSBA to develop a process for proposing a draft set of standards in that particular area. And Neil convened a task force about 6 weeks ago that has met twice. And this is one of the kind of the main topics of the program in our regional meetings this fall. So we received input on the draft proposal from the task force last evening. We'll do that again tonight and then 2 more times. There will also be a survey that goes to all local school board members about the draft governance standards and a workshop presentation and discussion at annual conference. After that, the task force will meet at the end of annual conference and finalize their draft for consideration by the VSBA board, with the intent that in mid-November, the VSBA board will forward a recommendation to the secretary. Twice recently, the Secretary of Education has mentioned to me that he also wants to have the VSBA and or local school board member participation in these other areas of the quality standards they're developing.
Thank you, Phil. Neil, do you have anything to add to that, or we're good?
The only thing that I will add to that is that this is sort of the first step of the process. The recommendations that the VSBA and the board will, and from the work of the task force, will provide to the secretary, then proceeds into the rulemaking process. So board members and really anyone else will have the ability to comment on these standards as part of the rulemaking process. So just because the task force does its work and submits the recommendation doesn't mean that the process is over at that point. It actually is just almost beginning at that point, and folks will have additional opportunity to provide comment on those.
Great. Thank you, Neil. And also, I just want to remind people that this is not something that came out of thin air. This was required by the bill of the pupil weighting study too. So just for you to know that. So any questions from the public? Otherwise, we'll move on to the next slide. I don't see any.
I saw one hand raised.
Oh, okay.
Bill,
Can we unmute? Or
Carrie,
type
can
the
you?
question?
Can you?
Yeah, I'm unmuting them right now. Just one
Thank
second.
you. Sorry, Carrie.
Bill, go right ahead.
Okay, hi, I'm Bill Edgerton. I'm on the task force, and I guess it's a question. Why is it, if the Secretary of Education is asking for VSBA's participation and input and recommendations for all these, the state law, and we're in the process of doing that, and he's already met with the task force on governance, why is this resolution necessary?
So Bill, what I would say is that at the time when we were doing this, we didn't know that quite yet. We were kind of it's just like kind of both merged, but I think it's still important that the VSBA has significant input, is what part of the resolution says on this process. So this gives guidance to Sue and Sandra were there testifying on our behalf. But I will let Neil, who's involved in this work, if you have, this is what I took from our committee, but Neil, would you want to add to that?
Yeah, I will support what Floor said. I think timing is part of the issue, Bill, in the resolution. I think the resolution was developed prior to the secretary reaching out to us for this. But I do also think it's important to have the resolution on the books for the VSBA. As we know, I mean, it may be unlikely, but administrations change. And with the change in administration, there's also the potential for a Secretary of Education to change. And so, a future administration may not be looking at this in the same way. To have this resolution on the books specifies it as one of the things that we want to advocate for, so that if anything in this area were to change, we've got the resolution, we know what the VSBA position is, and then we can move forward with that.
Thank you,
Well,
Neil.
let me give you my 2 cents,
Sandra.
if I may.
Yeah, go ahead. And then Sandra had a comment too.
Sure. My 2 cents is, if I was Secretary French, I'd take offense to this resolution. He's already reached out. He's already met with us. He's already said that he really wants our input. And now we're going to pass a resolution, resolve that the state do what he's already proactively created this process to do. So at the minimum, I think this should be rewritten to say that we commend the Secretary of Education, because this is so important to get this sort of input. But I don't know, I've been in these positions when I'm planning to do something, I'm doing something, and then somebody says you should do something, which is exactly what I'm doing. So I just think this is not very politically correct, in my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you,
I was
Bill.
just going
Okay.
to add that it was passed as a regular resolution, which means it'll be in effect for 1 year. And by that time, hopefully the LCAR process will have been moved toward its end.
Floor, I will also add to Bill, your point's well taken, and we certainly would make sure that we have communication with the secretary to indicate, if this resolution were to pass for the VSBA, it doesn't necessarily mean that we turn around and then immediately yell at the secretary that we want to be involved, especially knowing that we're already involved, right? So it's a little bit more, I think, pro forma at this point in regards to that particular situation. But we'll make sure that, if this resolution were to pass, that we'll make that communication with the secretary. And I would also add that if folks have concerns over the resolution, the resolution process at the annual meeting, folks could offer an amendment to this if they wanted to, and we can certainly handle it that way.
Thank you, Neil. Yeah, Bill, that's what I was going to recommend. You could come to the meeting on the 20th, and that would be the time to make an amendment to the resolution. So let's move to the next resolution, unless we have more questions. Do we see any else? Okay, I don't see anything else. So this resolution also came from the Resolutions Committee, and it came from past language that we used back in the spring. So it's not something that the full membership at that time was voted in this motion, and we decided that it was worth the cost to make it a resolution. So the VSBA supports universal school meals in Vermont schools. The funding should come from a source other than the education fund. The board recommendation was to pass as a regular resolution. So it would be, again, looked at in a year. Any questions on this resolution? I don't see any.
If you feel we've paused for questions along the way, then we can move along to the current resolutions with amendments.
Let's do that. So Phil, we sort of, I don't think we have a need for questions. right now. So as we noted at the beginning of the webinar, some resolutions are continuing or ongoing, and other resolutions will be in effect until the next annual meeting, when they may be deleted, continued, or amended by the vote of the membership. In addition to the 2 proposed revisions to the current resolutions presented earlier that Don was talking about, the VSBA board approved the committee's recommendations as a slate, and the details are found on the page 10 of the board's report. Hopefully you guys have seen that. The members will be voting on the slate of recommendations at the regular annual meeting. So we will have a chance to vote on the entire package. Hopefully that's clear enough, but I'll give it back to you, Sandra.
Great, thank you. I just wanted to mention that the board's report can be found on our website under the annual conference and annual meeting webpage. So this is where we will shift to bylaws, and I believe Neil will be, Neil, are you sharing your screen?
Yes, although once Carrie allows me to do that.
So I'm going to stop sharing.
Yes, I will take care of that right now.
Thanks, Carrie. Maybe while we're just in the pause and transition here, any other remaining questions from the resolutions part of the presentation today? All right. So we are going to move on to bylaws changes. I'm just going to start from the beginning and we'll scroll through these changes. The first section is Mission and Vision, Article 2. And by way of background, back in June, the VSBA Board of Directors began work on a revised mission and vision for the organization. More recently, we circulated those drafts with you, our members, for feedback, and we incorporated the feedback that we received from those suggestions into the new drafts. So what you see here in, well, and I'm colorblind, so I'm going to call it yellow, but if it's green, somebody tell me. Okay, good, it's yellow. Got it right. So what you see here in yellow is the result of that work. So this is the revised mission and vision, or vision and mission, if I'm going chronologically here, for the organization that replaces the previous vision and mission. The other area that we're looking at here is the goals, and we're suggesting that we remove the goals from the bylaws because we felt that these require annual review and possible updates. And because of that potential, because of the more fluid nature of the goals, we thought it was better to pull them out of the bylaws, but then to make specific reference to them, that they needed to be reviewed annually and revised as necessary, as just a particular task for the organization. I'm gonna pause there to see if, and I can pause after each section to see if anybody has any questions on the proposed changes.
I don't see any questions, Neil.
All right, I'm gonna move on then to the next section, which is in Article 4 dues. The change in the dues section is a rewrite to add clarity to the process. We didn't think that the reference to the annual meeting made much sense here. So we added reference to the budget process, setting a date of March 31st of each year to determine the revenue necessary to be raised by dues. And then we've also added clarity to the process in that the executive director will make the recommendation to the finance committee, and then the finance committee will bring the budget proposal to the full VSBA board. So that is the change that we are proposing here. Any questions on Article 4, the dues section?
I don't see any questions at this time.
All right, we're gonna scroll down. Article 6, delegates and votes. This is a pronoun change from his or her to their. And then the next changes in Article 7, which is Board of Directors. And we've made an update to Article 7 to allow for calling a special meeting. Prior to this change, we actually didn't have a provision for calling the full board together on short notice. And then in addition to that, so you'll see that change here. In addition to that, down here, we've just made a simple wording change that the board will meet 5 to 6 times annually. We've added at least in there as well too. And then the change. Oh, sorry, I'm getting a little mixed up because I think we've gone through a couple of changes here. We decided at the last board meeting to change this to at least 6 times annually rather than going with the 5 to 6 that we previously had in there. And then also made a change outlining what the board's authority was here in developing the mission and the vision, with the ultimate adoption being by membership. Any questions on the changes to this section, Article 7, Board of Directors?
I do not see any questions.
All right. I'm going to move down. I think our next change is in Article 8, which is again another pronoun change from his or her to their. And then the next one after that, I believe, is in Article 11, which is our regional organization. The change that we've got here clarifies that the terms for the regional reps should be staggered 2-year terms. That has been our practice, but it wasn't necessarily, it wasn't specified in the bylaws. So we're recommending striking the words in this last sentence as well. Down here, because it wasn't clear to us how long a member was appointed for if they were appointed to serve in a seat that a member was vacating. So this clarifies to us, at least until next, that it will happen until the next regular meeting. And I will admit that the fusion came up because we actually had a vacancy on the board of directors currently that we needed to fill, and it wasn't clear to us from the way that the bylaws were written currently as to whether or not that person would serve until the next regional meeting or until the end of the unexpired term. So this language here is to clarify that. And we're just going to say that it is until the next regional meeting. Any questions on this proposed change?
I don't see anything in the Q&A or any hands raised.
All right, thank you, Carrie. The next proposed bylaws change is Article 13, which is financial reports and bonds or insurance. We're just updating this. We don't actually bond folks anymore, but we do carry insurance to make sure that our folks are covered. So the change in language here is to just make it in line with what our current actual practice is. Any changes on bonding or insurance? Sorry, any questions on bonding or insurance?
Looks good.
All right, and that is the last of the proposed bylaws changes.
Any questions? I'm going to share my screen again.
And Sandra,
right.
I don't see any in the chat or in the Q&A, either one.
Okay, thank you.
No. We
Okay,
definitely
Phil.
want to thank everyone for joining us for this overview. We certainly look forward to seeing you at your annual meeting on Thursday, October 20th. There will be an outstanding annual conference, and you see the link there at our main website address to be able to register for the annual meeting and annual conference. Again, there will be a wonderful program that is really tailored to advanced learning and engagement of local school board members. We're always trying to improve everything we do. So again, following this webinar, you should receive a link to a survey to give input on how this worked for you. Your input is very important to us. And so we thank you for that, and we thank you for your service. Have a great rest of the day.
Thank you to all our panelists.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
everyone.